Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this TEM session related to the Building Partnership to Accelerate Implementation. We have a very interesting roster of panelists today while talking about this subject with the focus on cities, as all the TEM week we're focusing on. I am from CTCN. My name is Federico Villatico-Campbell, and will be the moderator today. And just as a small introduction to this topic, cities are really a concentration of mitigation technologies, and because they concentrate themselves a wide range of climate technologies, being energy in various forms, in buildings, for heating and cooling, while also energy for mobility and transportation. And on the other hand, land use. We have land use, and also we have so many challenges to be faced in cities. Just to give you some examples, in terms of investment potentials. Cities have an incredible, they put an incredible financial challenges. In fact, we have 80% of global GDP concentrated in cities. 70% of the economic activities are there. And also in terms, as far as greenhouse gases are concerned, we have 70% of greenhouse gases emissions in cities. And so on and so forth. So this is a really hot topic, both for mitigation and adaptation technologies. But okay, today we are focusing on mitigation. And there is also another interesting data. All this data from UN evaluation is that by 2050, the 4/5 of the world population will be living there. So this poses incredibly high challenges for the climate technologies and our climate business in the years to come. And one key aspect of how to tackle these and how to mitigate, building partnership to mitigate for mitigation action in cities is, in my view, also the integration. Because on one side, you have to have a regulatory framework that is capable of integrating all these competencies, all the climate technologies that are needed to be focused on while trying to mitigate actions in cities. So this cooperation is key, and an integrated planning of all of these actions has to be put in place by the local municipalities, local government, and then embedded in national plans. And today we're going to discuss all of this with our high-level panelists. And it's going to be interesting because we have representatives from international organizations focusing on renewable energy. We have like IRENA, we have donors, we have the Green Climate Fund, we have the GEF, and we have the German Developing Agency, we have EBRD, another developing bank. So all synergies between technical people and donors, and also the private sector represented by an architectural firm, Foster & Partners. So let's move forward. I give the floor to Mr. Roland Roesch from IRENA, and we'll see what the International Renewable Energy Agency is up to in terms of global partnerships.
Yeah. Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for inviting the International Renewable Energy Agency here to speak. I have a presentation where I would like to outline the partnerships IRENA has in some of our activities. And IRENA kind of has, with the different angles of work we do in policy, finance, in innovation and technology, of course, many angles of cooperation. And I have picked for the presentation today some of these initiatives to show how we cooperate, with whom we cooperate, why we cooperate, and how these cooperations are beneficial. And I have just chosen a few cases I know very well. There would have been much more, but I have chosen the one that. Wait.
Does it go?
Yes. Yes, for the ones who don't know the International Renewable Energy Agency, we are established in 2011 here in the Petersberg in Bonn. We have our headquarters in Abu Dhabi. Our Director General is Adnan Amin. And we have here the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center in Bonn. But we have also a secretariat or an office in New York as to, let's say, to be a permanent observer to the United Nations. IRENA at this time has 150 member countries and 30 countries in accession to IRENA. It's, let's say, just from there and looking on our mandate to assist countries to accelerate renewable energy deployment, and having this mandate makes us already a very important cooperation partner in many activities related to renewable energy deployment worldwide. And also with having a 150 member countries, this in itself creates a lot of opportunities for cooperation with us and from us with others. I want to use, because it became very important with the COP in Paris, I would like to show a little bit how we cooperate and what kind of work we do in the area of renewable energy innovation. And just to pick some of our activities, in the past we were kind of frequent observer to the UNFCCC, but also especially with the Innovation and Technology Center to the UNFCCC Tech. We presented a few times all our innovation work to the tech members to see what kind of cooperation possibility exists. We have very close cooperation, for example, with UNCTAD, where we did a webinar with them on renewable energy innovation in Ecuador. We are currently very closely working together with the Flanders Institute of Technology to organize an innovation event, the Global Science and Technology and Innovation Conference in Belgium. Very important to mention here is our IRENA Inspire, the intellectual property rights and renewable standards platform. And let's say to provide the content on this platform, IRENA has a specific look on standards and intellectual property rights from the corner of renewable energy. But the European Patent Office, the World Intellectual Property Rights Office, they don't have this specific renewable energy angle, and we cooperate with them to use the content they have on intellectual property rights, on standards, on our platform, and make it more and better usable for people that have this specific interest in standards and intellectual property rights related to renewable energies. Other activity we had in the innovation area, I would like to outline here. During our assembly in January this year, we had a ministerial roundtable with 25 heads of states and ministers and secretary of states, where we brought in the private sector, namely with Enel, Statoil, Engie, EnergyNet, 50 Hertz. And we had a very interesting and proactive discussion between policymakers and between innovators to show, let's say, how the innovation challenges could be solved and how cooperation could happen. Another event in innovation is the IRENA Innovation Week. Every second year, and we did it the first time in 2016, we bring all kind of renewable energy innovation stakeholder together policymakers, international organizations, and also the private sector to discuss challenges in how to make the world renewable till 2050. This is a very important work in our innovation area. We have other cooperations with the German Metrology Institute. They have the interest to use renewable energy standards, also very efficient, and we carry out workshops with them to tell and build capacities in IRENA member countries in how to use standards and how to build up the quality infrastructure for renewable energies. Then we are cooperating with the different international agency PFPS tasks. We work on standards for small wind turbines very closely together with the World Wind Energy Association, and we had several of those workshops together with them. That's just very brief. On the side of facilitate renewable energy project development, IRENA has a lot of activities. So there is the project navigator to mention, there is the sustainable energy marketplace that matchmakes, sustainable energy marketplace matchmakes between the funding of a renewable energy project and the idea of somebody who has an idea for a project. Project Navigator helps to develop renewable energy projects and to prepare bankable proposal. And let's say if I speak about workshops, next week we will have a training with the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank to discuss with them criteria and how to bring renewable energy projects on the ground and what are the criteria to have sustainable, good renewable energy project. Similar workshop we did last year with the African Development Bank, where we had a 3 days training with them on technologies and renewable energy technologies. We are using information cooperating with the Renewable Energy Cooperation Program of UIE-PDF. We work with JICA, we got data and technical concept guidelines for hydro and mini grids and other activities. We are very closely working together on the marketplace with funding renewable energy project ideas. Other activity, and this is the last one, is the Global Atlas about resource assessment for renewable energy resources. And there we have many partner countries within our membership, and we have multiple of organizations which provide data, like the German Aerospace, and also development banks are interested to use systematically our data, the resource data in the Global Atlas. So these were kind of very successful cooperations that IRENA had. And I think one ingredient of these very successful cooperations were, let's say, that these projects are complementary and the different partners add different aspects to create a sustainable and very successful cooperative project for member countries. Thanks. That was my presentation so far. Thanks.
Thank you, Roland. In terms of questions, I would suggest we go through all the presentations and then we open up the floor. So now let's move quickly to Carolina Fuentes from the Green Climate Fund. Let's see what she has to tell us about partnerships.
Thank you very much for inviting the GCF to this important theme on mitigation, and specifically on how building partnerships can help us accelerate implementation of actions. On this regard, GCF has as a particular feature, working with others, working with partners. The GCF is not an institution that is useful for countries on its own, but only as far as we can collaborate with others and that we can partner with other institutions. Just as an example of the wide range of partners with whom the GCF interacts, we have this list here, in which we have direct contact with national designated entities. Those are one of our key partners. Also, readiness delivery partners are important in the configuration of the fund. Accredited entities, climate finance delivery channels, and other thematic bodies of the UNFCCC. We have a mandate from the COP and also many of our board decisions that ask the GCF to collaborate with this network of partners. And I will just go just into little detail about what is the relevance of these partners with whom the GCF works. In the case of NDAs and focal points, we currently have over 140 NDAs that have been appointed by their countries. This is the basic point of contact for us to interact with countries, and they have a diversity of functions. The NDAs are those that convene at the national level diverse stakeholders, so they also ensure that other partners are engaged at the domestic level. That is crucially important for us. Also, the NDAs are the ones that identify suitable projects for submission to the fund, and also they ensure that those projects are aligned with their national priorities. So that is why it is key that we partner with the NDAs. Those are key for our institution. Another important role of the NDAs is suggesting entities, national entities, for accreditation to the fund, so that the resources can be provided directly from the fund to the direct access entities, and those can flow to the countries. That is another relevant area. And also the national designated entities are those that issue the non-objection letters for the projects that are presented to the GCF, so we can make sure that those projects are country-owned. So this is just to give you a flavor of how important is our work with NDAs and focal points. We have also a range of readiness delivery partners that are entities through whom readiness and capacity building resources are provided. Also, our accredited entities are key partners through whom the GCF project and program resources are channeled. Actually, the submission of funding proposals comes to the accredited entities. We currently have 48 accredited entities to the GCF, and these range from international entities, private sector entities, regional entities, and direct access entities. So there is a wide range. It is important to mention that we have 48 accredited entities, and from that number, 23 are direct access entities coming from countries and from regions. And also the direct access entities are very wide in type. Some of them are ministries from their countries, some others are foundations, etc. So there is a wide variety there. In terms of the climate finance delivery channels, these are other funds deploying financing to support climate action. One of those was sitting by my side, the Jeff, and other funds, other climate finance delivery channels, with whom the fund also has a mandate to collaborate, and we are making efforts also in setting up an operational framework of complementarity and coherence with other funds. Importantly as well, the thematic bodies of the UNFCCC are for the work of the fund. As you know, the thematic bodies also work in a wide variety of areas that range from adaptation, work with least developed countries, capacity building, etc. So working with them is also one of our key areas of priority. And we have an annual meeting with the thematic bodies, the GCF and the thematic bodies. So that is an important event. We also acknowledge and appreciate the other numerous stakeholders that work to contribute to the work of the GCF in the objective that we have to promote a paradigm shift towards low emissions and climate resilient development. And this includes governments, co-financing partners, executing entities, CSOs, PSOs, and that is only to mention a few. So I hope that this gives you a good idea and an overview of the diverse network of partners that we have and collaborate with. Now, in terms of the actions that the GCF supports, we have 8 specific GCF result areas. These areas have been decided by the board as those that address climate change and that can have a major impact in terms of transformation and in terms of making the most of the investment of the GCF. These are energy access and power generation, low emissions transport, building, cities, industries and appliances, forestry and land use. These last two particularly relevant for this theme. Vulnerable people and communities, health, food and water security, infrastructure and built environment, and ecosystems and their services. In terms of cities, there are important projects, and also in the case of forestry, that have been approved by the board. There is not much time, but I invite you also to visit our website. We have a website with all the projects that have been approved, and that are currently 43 projects in 63 countries that amount for a total of $2.2 billion. So you can have access to the information on these projects that pertain to different sectors, including cities and forestry and land use. And this is my last slide to wrap up. This is part of the type of support provided by the GCF. There are three main areas in which GCF support can reach the countries. One of those is readiness support, and that support goes from the NDA strengthening to supporting direct access entities, as mentioned, and also to supporting countries in developing their frameworks of engagement with the GCF. So that is the readiness area. Also, another important setup that the GCF has now is the project and program preparation support. We have the project preparation facility that is especially addresses micro and small size projects, and up to 1.5 million per project could be provided for this purpose. So this is another important channel. And finally, project and program implementation. And this is the finance provided for the implementation of mitigation and adaptation actions. This is the support that the GCF provides, and we encourage countries to submit their proposals, to work on them, and we will be very happy to receive them so we can make an assessment of those, and hopefully very high quality proposals can go to the board for approval. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and also I hope this information is useful. Many thanks.
Thanks, Carolina. I'm sure many people from the development board is very interested in your presentation and funding, for sure. So now let's move forward to EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. We have Peter Hirsch. He is an analyst working in energy efficiency and climate change. Peter, the floor is yours.
Hi. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak today. For those of you who aren't so familiar, the EBRD is a multilateral financing institution established in 1991. We operate in 36 countries, from Central Europe and Central Asia to South and East, the South and Eastern Mediterranean area. We're owned by 65 countries and the EU and the EIB. In terms of our operations, we have a 30 billion euro capital base, 41 billion euro portfolio, and on average over the past 3 years, our business volume is about 8.9 billion euro. Central to the bank are our operational principles, those being these three key tenets by which we seek to invest. The first being sound banking, where we're ensuring that the project returns are commensurate with the risks. The second is transition impact, making sure that we promote transition to open market-based economies. The last one, most relevant to us, is sustainability, to ensure that our investments are socially and environmentally sound and that they promote sound development. So within that space, the EBRD has affirmed its commitment to sustainability by recently adopting its green economy transition, as we call it, the GET. And the GET sets a few targets for the bank, being one, to have 40% of our business represented by green business by 2020, up from a level of about 30% in 2015. To date, through the end of 2016, we've invested about 22 billion in green investments, totaling just about 84 million tons of CO2 reduced. And to put that into perspective, that's about twice the annual emissions of Sweden. In terms of partnerships and collaboration and engagement, this is proving key to meeting these internal climate targets, but also addressing the environmental issues we see in our countries of operation. As part of these targets, the bank has recently launched its Green Cities program to collaborate with cities to identify, benchmark, prioritize, and invest in measures that improve urban environmental performance. The program builds on the bank's depth of experience in funding municipal and environmental infrastructure projects. Since 1994, the EBRD has financed 360 projects in the municipal sector, representing 6.4 billion euro in investments. So the program has three key components, all supported by strong collaboration with municipalities and local stakeholders. The first of these is the delivery of strategy and policy support. This primarily takes the form of what we're called Green City Action Plans. These plans benchmark a city's environmental performance based on a comprehensive set of indicators aligned with international best practice. A city's key environmental challenges are then identified through this assessment and local stakeholder input. This action plan is then put together based off of this assessment that prioritizes where and how a city can effectively act and provide a vision for the city's development. Action plans rely on frequent and open collaboration with municipalities and local stakeholders to ensure a feasible plan owned by the city. And stemming from these action plans, the second component is the infrastructure investments, where EBRD can support cities to implement the GCAPs, the Green City Action Plans, through infrastructure investments drawing from our experience in this sector. Typical investments include urban transportation, district heating, solid waste, water and wastewater, and building energy efficiency. And these infrastructure investments are supported by a component, the last component being capacity building and technical assistance, where each city and project in the program benefits from capacity building and technical support to ensure the successful and sustainable implementation and operation of investments and action plans. In terms of the innovation of this program within our region and within IFIs, we feel that the unique properties of this program are its ability to link strategic planning to investments, where the GCAPs help to plan and ultimately implement CapEx investments. It also offers a systematic approach to investment planning and urban sustainability that is often novel within our countries of operation. Also, the level of engagement that we have with the municipality and local stakeholders, particularly the CSO community, has proven to be novel. And then also being housed within EBRD, our hope is that these plans don't simply sit on the shelf, so that they can be implemented partially by us. With respect to international partnerships, we've recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Korean Export-Import Bank, KEXIM. We signed an MOU this week for $3 million in technical support, along with an additional allocation of concessional financing. But we do foresee the need for additional donor resources to further scale up the program. Also within the urban mitigation space, a few years ago, EBRD partnered with CTCN, actually, to develop a feasibility study and technical assessment of the rehabilitation and improvement of the district heating network in Banja Luka, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Through our collaboration, we were able to develop a strong foundation for an investment that ultimately both rehabilitated the network and then helped the network to switch from heavy oil to biomass. Both of these examples, being the Green Cities program and district heating in Bosnia and Herzegovina, show the impact potential that successful collaboration can have in addressing urban mitigation. And we certainly see as next steps to continue to seek out partnerships in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I think it's quite interesting to see how funding bodies like both EBRD and GCF, they have specific program for cities. So this is exactly what we're talking about today. So I think also we will come back to the collaboration between CTC and EBRD as an example of a good build partnerships to deliver mitigation actions in cities, right? So let's move forward with Silke from GIZ. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here with you today. I represent the GIZ today, which in German is die Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit. It's a federal enterprise that supports the German federal government in achieving the objectives in the field of international cooperation for sustainable development. So what we mainly do is capacity development, strengthening partner, developing potential is our principles for holistic competency progress. And GIZ assumes this to be the key for sustainable development. We mobilize networks to make international cooperation successful for all parties, and we do this through an access to relevant stakeholders in over 130 countries around the world, using effective and efficient cooperation with advisory and practical services. We work across a wide range of sectors, all very relevant to cities, and we work on behalf of clients inside Germany and around the world. If I talk about we mobilize networks, I talk about partnerships, cooperation arrangements, alliance and networks with organizations involved in international cooperation that are really crucial, important for GIZ. We cooperate in this way with national, European and international organizations and institutions. The strategic alignment, maintaining and management of partnerships, cooperation arrangements, alliance and networks are all an integral part of our daily work. And so we support to make international cooperation successful for all parties. Inside Germany, this means GIZ maintains intensive partnerships with other state and non-governmental stakeholders and works with them to establish new issues and fields of action. At international level, GIZ also cooperates with many partners. We can achieve more if we work together to develop ideas in fields of activities. And we have a long-standing experience with networks in partner countries and inside Germany. They are all important pillars on which to build successful international cooperation, not only in the economic, academic, and cultural sphere, but also in the civil society. To show some examples of our initiatives to accelerate implementations, I could name the NDC support cluster, which is promoted by our environmental ministry, BMUB, or the NDC partnership, which was launched in Marrakesh on the last COP. Also, the Cities Fit for Climate Change, Mobilize Your City, Transforming Human Urban Mobility Initiative, or to get more just down to one of the sectors, water and wastewater companies for climate mitigation. To give one more example on how this works, we, for example, have one project, it's a global project working in 4 countries, having the title of Water and Wastewater Companies for Climate Mitigation, in short, WACLIM. It's a project which is financed by our environmental ministry, BMUB, with the objective to reduce utilities' carbon footprint and accelerate action to decarbonize the water sector. It works in 4 countries, I said, Mexico, Peru, Jordan, and Thailand. And in the countries, always with the institutions which has the mandate for this cooperation, and then we try to put to all this direct support, advisory support. We put international expertise on it, and in this case through the International Water Association. So we always try to facilitate networks to get all those different stakeholders together on all the levels and having the focus on implementation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Silke. And also interesting to notice that also GIZ has a specific program on cities as well. Activities very much focused on our topic today. Then I would immediately give the floor to Hugh Stewart from Forster & Partners. So to check about the architectural perspective.
Good afternoon. I represent Forster & Partners, who are an international firm of architects. Our work ranges from the Parliament building in Berlin, in Germany, here to the Apple headquarters nearing completion in Cupertino. But we also work across a wide range of cultural urban regeneration projects, which is part of the mission of our company, which at its core is architecture. But we have a tremendous wealth of expertise across a wide range of disciplines within our office. I'm focusing today on a regeneration project right in the heart of Cairo, which we won at the end of 2015. It raises a lot of very pertinent issues in terms of sustainable regeneration in a city centre. Cairo has expanded to a city of 20 million in recent years, but the bulk of that growth is in the perimeter of the city in so-called New Cairo, which is based, in our view, on a relatively unsustainable model, the American car-based economy in the desert. So the agenda of regenerating large areas of slum dwelling in the center of the city, and this is literally on the Nile next to the Egyptian Museum and the Foreign Ministry, as a template for wider regeneration within Cairo and elsewhere, offers huge potential. What was interesting about this project was that the government, prior to launching the competition, engaged with the 14,000 residents of the site, which had proved an obstacle to development over many years. You can see here on the left, kind of Dubai-style tabula rasa redevelopment, which a number of developers over the years have tried, but it's always hit the objections of the very vociferous residents who want to stay where they are. Our project tackled the site on numerous levels. At the moment, it's a traffic island which separates the downtown area from the relatively high-end island in the middle of the Nile called Zamalek, to the relatively poor area of Bulak to the northeast. And our project was about knitting together the city. So if I go back to the previous slide, you can see that there was a story about extending road networks, connections to each of these neighboring areas, but also crucially, it was based around how people live in these relatively low income developments. So we based our whole design on a new paradigm for the housing. You can see on the top left there, the existing housing, which is in a very poor state of repair, is back-to-back housing, very little ventilation, and people live in the street as a result because the houses are not very nice. It's very convivial, but our project was about densifying to double the height of these buildings to 6 stories, to introduce communal courtyards, which is a very common motif in the Middle East. And also by going from 2 to 3 to 6 stories, we released about half the site for private sector development. And that leads me to my kind of final point, which is the mix of the project, which is a mix between government on the one hand, the owners of the site, which is a patchwork of ownership, which is completely illogical, of a number of wealthy families in the Middle East, to the people who live there, and also the potential for bringing in international support to the project. So on the one hand, the government initially squared things with the residents. They were very happy about the idea of staying on site. And interestingly, in our research prior to the development, during the competition, there are very, very few examples internationally of low-income housing redevelopment which retains the residents on site, which of course is absolutely crucial to the coherence of the communities that live there. If they're dispersed to new developments on the perimeter of the city, you destroy existing communities, and the one here is very strong, and you all the attendant problems of alienation. The land of this site is amongst the most valuable in the world. So you can see here the images of what the potential for the Nile frontage is to produce some very valuable residential and business properties, both of which there's very high demand, and at the same time linking that in as a coherent whole with the lower income communities at the rear of the site. So the current status of the project is that there is a bit of an impasse. between the interests of the owners, who don't see why they should release land to low-income people, the government, who have money shortages and are unable to finance further design studies, and the residents who continue to resist being removed from the site. So we've identified three possible avenues where funding could be extremely helpful in unlocking the site. The first of which is to a measure of subsidy for the low-income housing, to sweeten the pill with the landowners. The second is to finance further design studies, so that the government has been unable to invest in that. And obviously design is crucial to reconciling these seemingly conflicting interests, but it's something that we're very used to doing and enjoy enormously. And thirdly, one of the ideas at a conference we hosted in London a few weeks ago was the idea of building a prototype block. And with that, I will end.
Right. Thank you. Very interesting, this concept of urban regeneration. And let's move forward to our last but not least presenter, the GCF, the GEF, the Green Environmental Facility, Masako Ogawa, Senior Environmental Specialist. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for inviting Jeff to this important event. And my presentation is rather focusing on the one big city program. But before, I think you may know that who we are. That Jeff is a financial mechanism for the climate convention. And so far, until the last year's 2016, we have supported 836 mitigation project with Jeff financing is 5.3 billion. And we can leverage the whole 42.6, oh sorry. Yes, we can leverage the 42 billion. And among them, about 83 is the urban and transportation related project, with the Jeff amount is 588 million, and leveraging in the 6.3 billion. So this is the current situation, but let's talk about this specific project, program. And during the Jeff6 negotiation, we proposed to have a kind of the integrated approach pilot, which tried to address the drivers, not the symptom, but we try to address the drivers. And one of the flagship project is the sustainable cities, and as already introduced, but the cities kind of have a good opportunity or have good system if we push them to work and to integrate to implement sustainable and also low carbon activities. And under this program, we have two large components. One is, of course, we are supporting the cities itself. And you may know that, of course, as you said, there are many transportation and urban projects, but this program is rather focusing on the planning stages. And we try to how can I say, mainstream the environmental and the sustainability consideration in the city planning. So we have to work together with, of course, mayors and as well as a national government. And we currently, under this program, we support 27 cities with 11 countries there. And another important component is, of course, the partnership. And we have a global platform for the sustainable cities. And this is actually act as a knowledge hub or knowledge sharing mechanism. And not only we are working together with the agencies, I mean the implementing agencies, and also these major cities and countries, but also we are working together with the some non-governmental institutions. And this is the targeted cities now, currently. And for example, because this is also technology is important, I mean, the topic of these workshops. And for example, in Brazil, they do, of course, the work. They will work on the integrated planning, but also they will demonstrate some very innovative, I mean, the technologies. Innovative means that for them, they have never used or they are not demonstrated yet. So they want to use they will use a kind of the GIS for the land use planning, or they will look at electric vehicle and also the electric bike sharing system, and also the renewable energy will be included. Those kind of the whole sector will be targeted and with financing investment scheme. And this is the platform. So as I said, that of course the World Bank and as you see, there are many implementing agencies is an important partner, but also we have a resource team, which is the WRI and the C40 and the ICRE. And of course, they are actually have a much long history and much, I mean, the broader networking with the cities. And with this one, as a Jeff, we have to provide some added value. And what added value we thought that, as I said, that integrated planning and to mainstream sustainability and the environmental consideration within this whole integrated planning is the most important one. And in order for them, I mean, for cities to come out with those planning, through this platform, we provide training, we provide knowledge sharing, we provide tools, etc., etc. And actually, those resource teams will directly work together with those cities. And not only these participating countries, but we'll try to expand this knowledge sharing with another perspective or another cities. And just as this I said that this is the flagship JEFSIC project, so we try to see, and not unfortunately, or I don't know, but this is a kind of pilot. So we try to work together with the whole knowledge people and work with those organizations, and we would try to produce the good output from this one. Just last slide is through this project we provide. We actually focusing on the planning side, and also we work together with financing banks to provide the financing and the investment. And lastly, through the platform, we connect the city, among the city as well as the city with the international organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Masako. Now we conclude. Also, I mean, Jeff is on cities as well, so we continue to go along the same line, and we wrap up the presentation for today after we start discussing with the CTCN presentation, the Climate Technology Center and Network. So Jukka Vuosukainen, the director. So we'll see how a facilitator of technical assistance can deliver and assist partnerships. Jukka.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure again to be in the TEM, in technical expert meetings. We in the CTCN, we consider this a very important forum. Actually, we are not voluntary here, we are ordered by you, by the parties in Paris. We were ordered to report to the TEMs, and we were ordered to engage actively in the discussions of the technical expert meetings. Secondly, we have also been asked to learn from these meetings and take upon the lessons learned from your deliberations in order to look at whether there would be emerging high mitigation potential ideas or projects or proposals which we could then bring back to your technology focal points and start replicating, upscaling and achieving some transformational change. So we have a bit of similar mission than Green Climate Fund and of course sister organizations, that we need to start to learn something of this work which we have done for 20 years now. And now we are in the implementation phase of it. Just to say that when we established the CTCN in Cancun and when the first host agencies volunteered to host this center, UN Environment and UNIDO actually had already a consortium of more than 10 regional and global organizations. So there is a kind of critical mass of expertise in different climate sectors, both adaptation and mitigation. And to date, we have actually also managed to have a network of even 300 institutions which are covering wide range of expertise in mitigation and adaptation to serve also for the human settlements and cities. Like, these service areas seems a bit similar than Green Climate Fund, but I just pick up that from the mitigation side, energy supply, transport, and waste management are those which the kind of link to the human settlements and cities. And then indeed, we have also in the adaptation, we have the infrastructure, transport, and urban design. We have network members who are specialized in renewable energy, in energy efficiency, in transport, waste management, and urban planning and infrastructure. But let's say also frankly that among those more than 150 requests, not so many have been particularly focused on cities. Actually 8 technical assistance requests so far to the CTCN from the countries have addressed cities, 3 on mitigation and 5 from adaptation. One has been referred to here, that is the kind of changing fuels in the district heating system. Then we have been working with the government of Thailand on looking at the new benchmarking of building types and standards and so on. And indeed, we have looked at with the Ecuador on the issue of new waste management technologies in the municipal waste sector. Let me conclude just that CTCN is a body under convention in order to reach you all in the developing countries through your national designated entity. That is our network. That is the kind of first level partnership we have got. But indeed, all the proponents of the technology issues in the countries are welcome to through the national designated entity to bring their proposals and questions and requests to us, as we are serving all the countries in the country-driven manner. And indeed, our network, we are engaging our network member to bring best expertise to these technological issues, to bring the solutions to you. One of our very important issue is that our technical assistance would lead to investments, the kind of real climate actions and climate investments, either through the convention funding, which we have here representatives, or to private funding. And this is something we are always cautious about, that we should not leave you with some kind of technical assessment or report analysis, but bring and match you with the implementers of those who are bringing the climate technologies in the country or developing climate technologies which are adaptable in the local conditions. Finally, just to say that we are looking and we are using also in-kind financial and technical support. So some developed countries and their institutions have already offered their services through the CTCN in order to solve some of the problems of developing countries. And we have had a very good experience on that kind of willingness, that kind of volunteerism, which actually is the spirit of this convention, that developed country institutions will reach out and help their developing country partners in solving the technology challenges we have got. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuka. I would say now is the moment to open the floor to everyone. If you have any questions, to the panelists, we are happy to answer. I don't see many hands up. Oh, okay, sorry, you. Please, if you can introduce yourself, that will be helpful for us to. Mike is coming.
Well, I'm from Turkey. I'm the representative of a non-organization association. Well, thank you very much for your very interesting and useful presentations. All of the panelists really gave us good ideas, good suggestions. Now, what I'm interested in learning is that are your programs restricted to certain countries or selected countries or open to all over the world? I mean, especially for Turkey in we think. Do you have any restrictions if we apply, get your support? Thank you very much. My question to all of the panelists, okay? Thank you.
Right, thanks for the question. If anyone wants to start in particular among the panelists to answer this question, or?
No, I can try. I have been negotiating 20 years this convention, and there is a history with especially Turkey. And if you're asking that one, let's go out and discuss. This takes some time, because Turkey, when Turkey joined the climate convention in the early years, actually your country was announcing itself as a Annex 1 country. So and that is because this is a legal instrument. It has got the remediations of all the ways year through that you are actually by that definition in the beginning you were actually developed country, and of course the convention mechanisms are mainly to help developing countries in their challenges. So there are some legal issues we have to solve, but I have met with your delegation a couple of times, and we are still in the discussion of this, and I think that our chairman here knows also very well the situation, and we can discuss this more.
Right. Anyone else? Other questions?
Sorry, if you don't mind, I do hope to address that question as well. That Turkey is one of the countries of operation of EBRD, and it is eligible for the Green Cities program. That being said, though, the program is nascent, having just been approved by our board last November, and is focusing initially on the Caucasus and the Western Balkans region. But there was quite good cooperation with the city of Gaziantep on a climate change action plan last year that was published that ended up having some pretty good findings. So there certainly has been a history of climate change mitigation planning in Turkey to date.
Right, please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the question. In the case of the GCF, eligibility is one of the aspects addressed in our governing instrument, and that is for developing country parties under the convention, as per the instrument. We understand that the COP presidency is consulting currently on the matter of Turkey, and we receive our guidance as an operating entity of the financial mechanism. We receive our guidance from the conference of the parties. So we look forward to the outcome of those consultations, but we understand those consultations are ongoing. Thank you.
Just to answer for GIZ, as we work in behalf of our government in the most of the cases, the governments would have to agree and then ask GIZ to implement the project.
Anyone else wants to ask as a question for the panel? Actually, I have one for the panel, and tomorrow there will be the closing of this TEM week, right? So also will be important to report and have some findings and outcomes about what has been presented today. And in particular, I would concentrate my attention on how these, the representatives of donors, mechanism of developing agencies and also private sector, how they suggest, what are the recommendations to build effective partnership at national and international level to reach the end user, meaning in this case to mitigate, to implement mitigation action in cities. That would be my question to the wrap up of this discussion to all the panelists. I don't know who wants to start.
Somebody from Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. From Zimbabwe, you have your own questions, or you want to interact with this one?
I had a question after the interaction on that, so maybe I can come after the response to that.
Right. I think you can address your question, and then this can be the second one. So, and then we open up the discussion together. So, please go ahead.
Thank you to the panelists and the presentation. My name is Elisha from Zimbabwe. We are the NDA for the GCF. We wanted to find out from Carolina if the GCF is making any effort to make the processes of accessing resources more simplified. And I know money is not easy to access, but so that those who require the resources, they are able to access them. The same with speeding the aspect, the issue of direct access to countries. As we understand, this comes with capacity as well, enhancement of the countries, because at times that is, I feel is critical. My last question, we wanted to check whether it's GCF policy or accredited entity policy to say that the applicants have to take about part of the risks, or when applying for resources, or the risk can be taken by the GCF. I hope I'm not getting too technical on this. Thank you.
Right. Maybe we can take the last question from the European Union, and then we continue with the discussion. Please.
Yes, thank you. First of all, for the very interesting presentation and the rich overview of opportunities. Obviously, as the EU, we have several programs and initiatives targeting support for accelerating actions on city level. So, and beyond that, for example, under the European Regional Development Fund, there is money dedicated. I wanted to follow up on a presentation by IRENA, where you mentioned that you actively work with organizations like the AIIB and kind of newer players in this field. So on introducing environmental criteria, or this is how I understood you, and I would like to hear more about this. Thank you.
Right. If there is no other question, I think we can move with some answers. And who wants to pick up? Carolina?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So I will take the chance to address the two of those, that from Zimbabwe and also the one from the moderator. On the question from Zimbabwe, many things. On the process of accessing resources, there is currently in the agenda for the next board meeting that will take place in July, from the 3rd to the 5th of July. One of the items is the proposal approval process. And as part of that, the board is tasked at looking at ways in which the approval process of funding proposals could be made more efficient and also more responsive to countries' needs. And this will not only as a philosophical conversation, but based on the experience that the fund has collected so far from the first approvals that took place in 2015, at the end of 2015, and in the 5 board meetings of the board in which funding proposals have been considered. So based on that experience and in our interactions with countries and on the feedback that we have received, is that this item is going to be considered, and the expectation is that this could yield some sort of simplification, mainly for LDCs and cites and countries that need to have simplified procedures, and also for small scale projects. On direct access for countries, there is a workshop currently being organized at the end of May. We will have a workshop for direct access entities, and this is specifically targeted to serve as a platform for direct access entities to gather, to share lessons, and also to try to find out ways in which we can enhance the pipeline coming from direct access entities. This is going to take place at the end of May in Songdo, so we can provide you the information as well, the detailed information on this workshop, and that is an opportunity also to enhance direct access entities. Also to mention that our board agreed to prioritize in the pipeline of accredited entities, the entities applying for accreditation. They agreed to prioritize direct access entities and also entities that work on the private sector, since private sector in developing countries. So direct access is one of the priorities for accreditation. And in terms of who is taking the risk, the fund is currently open to projects that are oriented to the risk in action, and our current risk guidelines, that are interim risk guidelines, are open to up to 100% on public sector. On private, we have different thresholds, and we're happy also to discuss offline, and also to mention that the guidelines that we have at the moment are interim, and the board is going to look at permanent risk guidelines in the future meetings. And that is a key matter for the fund to address, because to the extent to which the fund can address risk and take risk, that is going to be reflected also in the ability that we will have for a scale action, and also to have a action that is ambitious and that has an impact. So it is important that we work on risk. And thank you so much. Just very briefly on the question on recommendations to build effective partnerships. The key would be to have a common purpose. And on that, we have an example, and I will just mention that very briefly, on a project in El Salvador. That is a project that addresses energy savings. It's an energy savings insurance for small and medium-sized enterprises. It is important to mention that in El Salvador, 90% of their private sector is small and medium-sized enterprises, and those are characterized for having obsolete equipment that is highly energy intensive. So the project is for a total of $40 million US. 20 million are a loan from the GCF, and 20 million are also given by Bandesal, that is the National Development Bank of El Salvador. So that is a very concrete way of collaboration between partners, the GCF, and in this case, a local national development bank, partnering for a very concrete and very clear cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Anyone else in the panel wants to pick up give other answers to the questions that have been raised?
I might pipe up from a design point of view that the importance of seed funding for pioneering technologies through particular projects, I think is essential. I mean, you can see this in the commercial world, where 10 years ago, wind energy, solar panels were at the margins of viability, but through a process of pioneering projects and the gathering momentum of those two technologies, they're now completely mainstream and a part of our world, and contributing to what we're talking about today. And I think that can be in the context of cities, as we're talking about today. I think that there are pioneering projects. If you're experimenting, they don't always go right, and they're not always commercially viable in the currency of the times. But unless you push what is normal forward, you'll never change things.
Right, thanks. Anybody else? You want to? Right.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer the question from the European Union. So we developed a platform to support project development, best practice in project development. And also we help not so experienced project developers to develop renewable energy projects, which can actually also be used in the context of municipalities. And one of the requests we got, let's say, to provide access to sustainable forms of renewable energy also to cities and communities. And we have aspects of community financing in this platform. And let's say what became clear after a while, this is, let's say, to support project developers, to have a clear understanding of the process, what needs to be done, how do you use your resources efficiently in not spending money and not spending human resources on wrong projects that may not go to funding at the end of the day and will not be implemented. And then with earlier discussions we had with multinational development banks in developing countries, it turned out that what we created is very much interest also for multinational development banks and development banks to understand, and they basically all come from more centralized power plants, fossil power plants and other types of gas power plants. And now with renewable energies, the projects are smaller. They have different technologies, let's say from wind to solar to geothermal to hydro and many others, and that creates difficulties in making a proper evaluation of projects and to find out which are the good projects to be funded. And in this context, IRENA kind of provides trainings and supports, of course, to member countries, but now we receive more and more requests also from development banks. And in this context, we do workshops and we work together to find out what are the challenges, and we train personnel and we provide information, checklists, guidelines, financial evaluation tools to find out, let's say, what are the best projects and yeah, to fund the right projects. So we are very happy that this kind of turns out so well in cooperation with different stakeholders of these tools.
Right. Any other comments from the panel? Not really. You have one? Yep. Yuka, please.
Yeah, just a few kind of reactions to the discussion, which I would really sincerely hope that these kind of discussions would be more active, as these are the opportunities where the governments and the parties will hear and meet the doers, those who are implementing on the field, whether they are public or private entities and actors. We need to make this STEM working, because this is the ultimatum time when we prepare all of ourselves for the 2020 implementation time, and this is the time to change words. But just looking at the partnerships again, we as a body of the convention, CTCN, we first look at the partnerships within the convention, and it is not yet established fully. We have very kind of good efforts now to partner with financial mechanisms, both GEF and then Green Climate Fund, in order to make modalities which are streamlined, that our technical advice will lead to a solid and sustainable financial proposals and which are acceptable for these funding mechanisms. We also need to see that what is coming from the capacity side, because the means of implementation are capacity, technology, and finance. And we know that we are part of that Paris Committee for Capacity Building and looked at what is there coming now in order to fulfill the picture of MOIs of the convention. But a more, or not more important, but one very important dimension is not only in the convention, but it is towards the outside of the convention. Let's be frank here that CTCN as an operative mechanism of the convention runs with $15 million per year. So that's all money we are actually in the core budget giving support to the 100 and more developing countries per year. So it's not very much of what we are having. There are huge amount of funds, huge amount of resources and expertise outside of the convention mechanism for technology assistance. And that has to be tapped. So how these developed country and some emerging economy institutions, their technical expertise can be serving the convention purposes. And this is about building partnerships outside of the convention to use that bilateral and regional and multilateral resources, which is prone to help the developing countries in their challenges. That collaboration needs to be still established. We have started to do it, we have reached out, we have sent letters, and we are continuing it. But one very important focal point here is the developing country authorities themselves, because they are the one where everything comes back together in the implementation phase. That developing country authorities, national focal points of finance, technology, capacity building, adaptation fund, CHEF, and so on, should together think about that, where they can draw that willing expertise. And because they are the only one who owns the NDC as kind of national kind of things. Everybody should follow that suit. And I hope that we can build that in these coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jukka. I think you were definitely strengthening the concept of being integrated, the integration between the technological mechanism, the financial mechanism, the actors, and to build partnership at the end to reach the end users, right? So to deliver. And I think if there is no more question from the audience, I think we can thank all of the panelists that have contributed to this session. And thank you for your kind attention. And hopefully we will go home with positive outcomes out of this meeting that we're going to be reporting tomorrow for the closure of the TEM meeting. Thanks again for being with us, and I'll see you soon around during these week closing. Thanks. Bye bye. Thanks to all of you guys.